I believe the more you love a man, the more you give your trust, the more you're bound to lose. Although when shadows fall, I think if only somebody splendid really needed me, someone affectionate and dear, cares would be ended if I knew that he wanted to have me near. But I believe that since my life's began, the most I've had is just the talent to amuse. If love were all. Dear friends, tonight I would like to dedicate this performance to the memory of Miss Nicky Barber, who died very suddenly this morning. Now, dear friends, tonight we're going to give you a selection of my words and music over a period of around 60 years. During that time I wrote around 425 songs, all of which we intend to perform for you tonight. So you must forgive us if this is a somewhat lightning tour through the coward repertoire. I know there are a few songs you want us to include, and a few I know that you hope we don't go near. But we hope you enjoy the program, and that a few of you might just remember some of them. So, come with us a little. Hurry, hurry. We're going back. Don't put your daughter on the stage, Worthington. Don't put your daughter on the stage. The profession is overcrowded, and the struggle's pretty tough. And admitting the fact she's learning to act that isn't quite enough. She has nice hands to give the wretched girl her due, but don't you think her bust is too developed for her age? I repeat, Mrs. Worthington, sweet Mrs. Worthington, don't put your daughter on the stage. Why must the show go on? It can't be all that indispensable. To me, it really is sensible on the whole to play a leading role, while fighting the stage you can't control. Why kick up your legs when draining the dregs of sorrow to the town? Because you have read some idiot to set the curtain that must go up. I'd like to know why a star takes vows, having just returned to burying her spouse. Brave Hooper-Doopers, go home and dry your tears. Gallant old troopers, you've borne us all for years. And when you're so blue, wet through and thoroughly woe begone, why must the show go on? There are bad times just around the corner. There are dark clouds as blue the sky, and it's no use whining about a silver lining, for we know from experience that they won't roll by with a scowl and a frown. We'll keep our peggers down and prepare for depression and gloom and dread. We're going to unpack our troubles from our old kit bag and wait until we drop down dead. Of England, how beautiful they stand, to prove the upper classes have still the upper hand. Those that they have to be only built, and drink with their mornings to the hilt, inclined to take the guilt. All the gingerbread and certainly damage the fun of the eldest son, but still we won't be beaten, we'll scrimp and screw and save. The playing fields of Eton have made slightly brave, and though they're like cattle on clouds, they might, will fight for the stately homes of England. dance, little lady, you will be sweet. The rhythm beating in your mind. Dance, 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 little lady, so obsessed with second best, no rest you'll ever find. Time and tide and trouble, never, never wait. Let the cauldron bubble, justify your fate. Dance, 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 little lady, dance, 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 little lady, leave tomorrow behind. London pride has been handed down to us. London pride is ours free. London pride means our own dear town to us, and our pride is forever will be. Whoa, Eliza, see the Costa Barrows, the vegetable narrows, and the fruit pile high. Whoa, Eliza, little London sparrows, Covent Garden Park is where the Costas cry. Cockney beats Marguerite on Saturday, all Park Lane is a shivering town. Whatever might replace the grace of London town. There's a little city fly every spring unfailing, growing in the crevices by some London railing. Though it has a Latin name in town or countryside, we in England call it London Pride. London Pride has been handed down to us. London Pride isn't flowers free. London Pride means our own dear town to us, and our pride is forever will be. Stay city, smokily enchanted, taken so for granted for 1,000 years. Stay city, stubbornly implanted, cradle of our memories, our hopes and fears. Every bliss your resistance company, from the rest to the anchor ground. Nothing ever can override the pride of London town. I can remember the months of November and December were filled for me with other joys far different from those of other boys. For other boys would be counting the time till end of term and holiday time, but I was acting in Christmas plays while they were taken to pantomimes. I didn't envy their Eton suits, their country dances, their country balls. While they made snowmen in stately parks, I was counting the curtain calls. I remember those auditions, the nerve-wracking auditions, empty auditorium, dark and dusty stage, little girls in ballet dresses practicing positions, gentlemen with pince-nez asking you your age, nervousness and hopefulness struggling within you, dreading that familiar phrase,
"Thank you, dear, no more."
Straining every muscle, every tendon, every sinew, to do your dance much better than you've ever done before. Think of your performance, never mind the others, never mind the pianist, talent must prevail. Never mind the baleful eyes of other children's mothers glaring from the corners and willing you to fail. I can remember the months of November and December with more significant to me than other months could ever be. For these were the months of higher romance, when destiny waited on tiptoe, when every boy actor stood the chance of getting into a Christmas show. Not for me the dubious heaven of being some prefect's protege, not for me the second 11, for me 2 performances a day. Those first rehearsals. Only very few lines, rushing home to mother, learning them by heart, enter left through window, dots to mark the cue lines, exit with the others. Still, it was a part. Opening performance. Legs a bit unsteady. Dedicated tension. Shivers down the spine. Powder grease and eyes black. Sticks of makeup ready. Lights in number 3 and number 5 and number 9. World of strange enchantment. Magic for a small boy. Dreaming of the future. Reaching for the crown. Rigid in the dressing room. Listening to the call boy.
Overture, beginners, everybody down!
I can remember I can remember the months of November and December, although climatically cold and damp, meant more to me than Aladdin's lamp. I see myself having got a job, walking on wings along the strand, not knowing whether to laugh or sob, and clutching tightly my mother's hand. I never cared who scored the goal, or which team won the silver cup. I never learned to bat or bowl, but I heard the curtain going up. Something bright and sweet and gay. For we must have music, we must have music to drive our fears away. While our illusions swiftly fade for us, let's have an orchestra score. In the confusion the years have made for us, serenade for us just once more. Life needn't be grey, though it is changing day by day. Though a few old dreams may decay, play, orchestra, play. Life needn't be grey, though it is changing day by day. Though a few old dreams may decay, play, orchestra, play. Euston Station, 1911. I was on my way up to Manchester to do a performance of Where the Rainbow Ends. A lot of the children in the train were familiar to me from other child shows, but there was one girl who wasn't. She was tremendously mundane, had a powder puff, a black coat with a satin collar, and wore a cap with a military peak. She told me her name was Gertrude Lawrence, but I would have called her Gertie. She then gave me an orange, told me a few mildly dirty stories, and I have loved her ever since. You see, I'd always wanted to write a play for Gertie, but when my 1929 operetta Bittersweet proved far too taxing for her vocally, the next offering was Private Lives. I cabled it to her when I was in Shanghai. She cabled back rather casually, if I may say so, and said, "Red play, nothing wrong that can't be fixed." So as you can imagine, I cabled back and said, "The only thing that will be fixed, dear, is your performance." We were always very good with our telegrams. When she married her manager, Richard Aldrich, I cabled her from the Blitz and said, "Hooray, hooray, dear Mrs. A, at last you are deflowered. On this and every other day, I love you, no coward." You see, I never dreamed she would die so young. I always think she would go on forever, myself writing the plays and her and I performing in them. In fact, her last production, The King and I, was offered to me to play the role of the king. I turned it down and it went to that marvellous man, Mr. Brenner, who, if I may say so, made quite a career of it. But of course, on the night she died, they lowered the lights on Broadway. Every night when I go to bed, I still see her on that Private Lives balcony, and she never goes away. You must forgive me, even though I wrote this song for Private Lives, I never sang it myself, but I wrote it for Gertie. That orchestra seems to have a remarkably small repertoire. Strange how cheap potent music is. When one is lonely, the days are long. You seem so near, but never appear. Each night I sing you a love song. Please try to hear, my dear, my dear. Someday I'll find you, moonlight behind you, true to the dreams I am dreaming. As I draw near you, you smile a little smile. For a little while, we shall stand hand in hand. I'll leave you never, love you forever, all of our sorrows redeeming. Try to make it true, say you love me. Someday I'll find you again. In the gay days just before the war, I was on a holiday in the south of France, and myself, along with a few other theatrical friends, were invited to a very fashionable party. When it arrived, it soon became clear that we had been invited so that we may entertain it. We declined politely and were cut for the rest of the evening. Not that that in any way impaired our enjoyment. And later, with malice aforethought, I wrote this song for Beatrice Lilly. It's about one of those amiable but fatuous ladies who, believe it or not, still exist to this day. Do you know, quite for no reason, I'm here for the season of the high as a kite. Living in air with more the capella, which couldn't be right. Do you know, everyone's here and frightfully gay. Nobody cares what people say, though the Riviera seems very much queerer than Rome at its height. On Saturday night, I went to a marvellous party with Nunu and Nana and Dell. I was in the fresh air and we went as we were, and we stayed as we were, which was hell. Paul Gray started singing at midnight and didn't stop singing till 4. Now we knew the excitement was bound to begin when Laura got blind on Molly and gin and scratched the video with her Cartier pin, tried to couldn't have liked it more. Tried to marvellous party. I must say the fun was intense. Now we all had to do what the people we would be doing 100 years hence. Dear Cecil arrived wearing armour, some shells and a black feather boa. For militant war a surrealist code. Made them bits of mosaic from St. Peter's in the Rome. But the wait was so great that she had to go home. I couldn't have liked it more. I mean, in Riviera, you'd have never got this sort of behaviour. I mean, I just can't begin to tell you the fun we had. I mean, all the time, people's behaviour away from their gravy routine. Well, so much variety watching society scampering past. Now, if you have any mind at all, Gibbon's divine decline and fall will seem pretty flimsy, no more than a whimsy, on Saturday last. By way of contrast, I went to a marvellous party. We didn't start dinner till 10, and young Ricard just stumped with about a lot of extraordinary men. Devara arrived with a turtle, which shattered us all to the core. Now the Archduke was dancing a foxtrot with me, when suddenly Cyril yelled fiddle-diddy and ripped off his trousers and jumped in the sea. I couldn't have liked it more. I've been to a marvellous party, at least made an entrance with May. You'd never have guessed from her fisherman's nest with her bust being whittled away. Poor Courtney got blind on the sharp list, and talked about every decor. Maurice made a couple of passes of Gus. Ferry, who hates any kind of a fuss, with half a big apple and twisted his trust I couldn't have liked it more. And I've been to a marvellous party now. We played the most wonderful game. Marina disappeared and came back with a beard, and we all had to guess her name. Now, we talked about growing old gracefully, and Elsie, who's 74, said A, it's a question of being sincere, and B, if you're subtle, there's nothing to fear. When she swung upside down from a glass chandelier, I couldn't have liked it more. During the gloomy days of the war, I was quite unable to take seriously that little man with his stumpy female legs, his rounded gait, a comedic toothbrush moustache. What is even more incredulous was the way he was able to subjugate a nation of millions. So I wrote this song during the war as a satire against a small group of excessive humanitarians who, in my view, were taking a far too lenient view of our enemies. Don't let's be hasty to the Germans when our victory is ultimately won. It was just those nasty Nazis who persuaded them to fight, and their beta was bark already far worse than their bites. Let's be meek with them and turn the other cheek with them and try to bring out the latent sense of fun. Let's give them full air parity and treat the rats with charity, but don't let's be hasty to the hand. We must be kind, and with an open mind, we must endeavour to find a way to let the Germans know that when the war is over, they are not the ones who have to pay. We must be sweet and tackle and discreet. And when they suffer defeat, we mustn't ever feel upset or ever get the feeling that we cross with them or hate them. Our future policies must be to reinstate them. Don't let us be beastly to the Germans when we've definitely got them on the run. We must treat them very kindly as we would a valued friend. We might send them out some bishops as a form of lease and lend. Let's be free with them and day by day repeat the sterilization simply isn't done. Let's help the dirty swine again to occupy the Rhine again, but don't let me be the Don't let's be beaten to the Germans when the age of peace and plenty has begun. Then they gave us science, music, art, and culture to excess. They also gave us 2 world wars and Mr. Rudolph Hess. Let's be free with them and share the BBC with them. We mustn't prevent them basking in the sun. Let's help them fill their swell again or bomb us all to hell again, but don't let's be beastly to the Hun. A few years ago, I was bumping along on a 1,000-mile trip from Hanoi in Tonkin to Saigon in Indochina. There was nothing much to do but stare out the window and stare at the lush tropical scenery and observe that in the heat of day all sensible creatures had retired to rest, with the notable exception of the British, who were frequently scarlet in the face and perspiring briefly, carried on with their tasks, undaunted by the midday sun, and in doing so, inspired me to write this next song, which became a staple part of my true concert. In fact, I got so sick and tired of it, I later took it at such a lightning pace, of scant regard for my audience, and I'm sad to say, my pianist. Both you and he will be pleased to know I will not be adopting that maxim tonight. In tropical climes at a certain time of day, with citizens are retired to tear their clothes up and perspire, is one of the rules of the greatest fools of air, because the sun is far too sultry and one must avoid its ultraviolet ray. Its natives, please pay no attention, please don't encourage them. Now the natives grieve when the white men leave their huts, because they're obviously, definitely nuts. Mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. The toughest Burmese bandit can never understand it. In the Rangoon, the native crew, they jump on the native shun. They pull their Scotch and lie down. In the Philippines, they have lovely screens to protect them from the glare. In the railway streets, a hat-like plate that the Britishers won't wear. As well, the natives and no further work is done. But mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. The eastern eyes to see, but though the English are a fleet, they're quite impervious to heat. When the white men arrive behind, they can hide to glee. The other simple creatures hopey will impale his soul and topee on the tree. That's the same natives, pay no attention, please don't encourage them. Now it seems such a shame when the English claim the earth, but they give rise to such hilarity and mad dogs and Englishmen go out in midday sun. The toughest Burmese bandits can never understand it. In Hong Kong they strike a gong and fire off a they gun. Or in Penang inmates who's inmate. In the jungle town the sun which stands will rage of man and beast. The English guard, the English Slavish yet and the priest. In Bengal that they do with all the show they've ever done. But mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. Mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. The smallest male rabbit, the claws, his foolish habits. In Hong Kong they strike a gong and fire off a noonday gun. The rest of our nation inmate, who's in the inmate. In the mangrove swamp the python belongs to this piece of 12 to 2. Even caribous lie around and snooze, but there's nothing else to do. In Bengal, to whom at all is seldom ever done. But mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday, 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 out in the midday sun.
Sorry.
The English that one read about, and may have been misled about, in one respect has kept it all intact. Though Pakistan traditions may have cracked and thinned the good old Indian arm is to the fact that famous monument man, the officer and gentleman, the some reefs and functions from Bombay to Kathmandu. At any moment one can glimpse, but sure an embryonic glimpse, vivaciously speculating as to what became of who. Though eastern sounds may fascinate your ear, when west meets west you're always bound to hear. You know, whatever became of all that? I haven't seen him for a year.
Is it true that old Briggs had to marry that faggot he met in the Vale of Kashmir?
Have you heard any news of that chap in the blues? Was it Prosser or Pycroft or Pibbs?
Ah, he was stationed at Simla, or was it Bengal? I know he got tight at a ball in a ball, and wrote several four-letter words on the ball.
I wonder what happened to him.
Whatever became of old Shelley?
Is it true that young Forbes was cashiered for riding quite nude on a push bike through Delhi the day the new viceroy appeared?
Ah, yes. Has anyone heard of that bloke in the third? Was it Sotheby, Sedgwick or Sid?
Ah, yes. Well, they had him thrown out of a club in Bombay for part of his mess bills exceeding his pay. He took to pig sticking in quite the wrong way. Whatever became of old Shelley? Is it true that young Forbes was cashiered?
He injured himself at the end of a truck and had to be sent to the hills.
Now they say that young Lees has a go of DTs, and his chance of promotion is slim. Now according to Stubbs, who's a bit of a louse,
Yes.
the silly old blighter went out on a souse and took to old Tart to Government House.
I say, I wonder what happened to him.
Whatever became of old Archie?
Ah, I hear he departed this life after rounding up 10 sacred cows in Karachi to welcome the governor's wife.
Now do you remember young Phipps, with very large hips,
Yes.
but whose waist was excessively slim? Well, a curious doctor from Grosvenor Square gave him hormone injections for growing his hair. He grew something here, and he grew something there.
I wonder what happened to him.
Known song I wrote many years ago when I was holidaying on the island of Capri. Every night I would sit on the piazza and see hordes of middle-aged ladies appearing by every boat, all set to have themselves a ball. And so struck was I by this rather macabre spectacle that I wrote this song about a respectable middle-aged matron who discovered in a nick of time that life was for living. In these your abodes, this barbarous roads, not far from the Isha bypass, let the mother and wife, who through most of her life, let every adventure fly past. She had 2 strapping daughters and a rather dull son, and a much duller husband with 61, elected to retire, and later on expire. Sing hallelujah, hey nonny no, hey nonny no, hey nonny no, he joins the feathered choir. On a wet afternoon, in the middle of June, they all of them came home soaking, having lain to rest by special request in the family vaults at Woking. And then in the middle of the funeral wake, with her mouth of excellent Madeira cake, his widow cried, "That's done! My life's at last begun. Sing hallelujah, hey nonny no, hey nonny no, hey nonny no, it's time I had some fun. Today, though hardly a jolly day, at least has set me free. we'll all have a lovely holiday on the island of Capri in our bar on the pink marina. Life called to Mrs. Wentworth Brewster. Fate beckoned her and introduced her into a rather queer, unfamiliar atmosphere. She just stood there propping up the bar beside a fisherman who sang to the guitar. When accused of having gone too far, she really cried, "Couldn't you need to fancy me particular?" When he bellowed, signorina, she had ecstasy at once produced a wild shriek from Mrs. Wentworth Brewster, changing her whole demeanor. And both her daughters and her sons said, "Please come home, Mama." She murmured rather biliously, "Who do you think you are? You can afford to be so lousy, bloody-da, in the bar on the Piccola Marina." Every fishman sighed, "Viva, viva, and care, and that's the way she sat on the grand piazza, everybody would rise." Every fishman sighed, "Viva, viva, che bella inglese." Someone even said "whoopsie-daisy," which was quite a surprise. Each night she makes a vague excuse, and beaming with goodwill, she just slipped into something loose and totter down the hill. Sorry. To that bar on the Piccola Marina, when up called to Mrs. Wentworth Brewster. Hot flashes of delight suffused her. Right around the bend she went. Picture her astonishment. Day in, day out, she would gather out because she felt she was no longer on the shelf. Night out, night in, knocking at the gingerbread. Beneath yourself. Now just for fun, 3 young sailors from Messina bowed low to Mrs. Wentworth Brewster, said "Scusy" and politely goosed her. Then there was quite a scene. Her family in floods of tears said, "Leave this memoir." She said, "They're just high-spirited like all Italians are." Most of them had a great deal more to offer than Papa in the bar on the Piccola Marina. The late 1950s brought what was known as the angry young men of the royal court to the fore. All of a sudden, a light comedy whose sole purpose was to amuse suddenly became insignificant. Since when did laughter become so insignificant? No merriment could scratch the grim patina of those dire years. Apparently we all had to sit around and wait for death. I agree, it was dull to write incessantly about tramps and prostitutes, as it was to write incessantly about dukes and duchesses. But it was also stupid and bigoted to believe that underprivileged housewives frying onions and using ironing boards were automatically the salt of the earth. In defense of this, we're going to give you an extract from my play from 1939, Present Laughter. My colleague will be playing the role of Roland Moore, an up-and-coming young playwright. The scene is the morning after a very long night. I want to talk to you about your play.
I expect you hated it.
Well, to be candid, it was a little uneven.
I thought you'd say that.
Then why on earth did you send it to me?
I mean, it really isn't the sort of thing you would like, is it?
I'm glad I'm running true to form. Why did you send it to me in the first place?
I just took a chance. I mean, I know you only play rather trashy stuff as a rule, and I thought you might like to have a shot at something deeper.
And what is there about your play, Mr. Moore, that you consider so deep apart from the plot, which is submerged after the first 4 pages? You must appreciate that my opinion, based on a lifelong experience of the theatre, might just be the right one.
What you don't realise is that the theatre of the future is the theatre of ideas.
What that may be, but what I am concerned about is the future of the present.
And what do you do with it? Every play you appear in is exactly the same. Superficial, frivolous, and without the slightest intellectual significance. All you do with your talent is wear dressing gowns and make witty remarks.
As a rule, when insufferable young newcomers have the impertinence to criticize me, I should take it lightly, because I'm embarrassed for it. It doesn't do to puncture their inflated egos too greatly. But this time, my highbrow young friend, you're going to get it in the neck. For a start, your play is not a play at all. It's a meaningless jumble of adolescent, pseudo-intellectual poppycock. It bears no relation to the theatre, or life, or to anything else. If you wish to be a playwright, you just leave the theatre of tomorrow to take care of itself. Go and get yourself a job as a butler in a repertory company, if they'll have you, and learn from the ground up how plays are constructed and what is actable and what isn't. Then, sit down and write 20 plays one after the other. And if you can get the 21st produced for a Sunday night performance, you'll be damn lucky. This is a changing world, my dear. New songs are sung and dreams appear. Though we grow older year by year, our hearts can still be gay. Young love at most is a passing phase, charming and foolish and blind. There may be other happier, brighter days when youth is far behind. Where are the snows of yesteryear? New songs are sung when spring is here. No regrets are worth the tears. We're living in a changing world, my dears. I'm world weary, living in a great big town. I find it so dreary, everything looks grey or brown. I want an open view, great big trees, a bird's eye view of the Pyrenees. I want to watch the moon rise up and see the great red sun go down. Watching clouds go by through a winter sky fascinates me. But when I'm standing in the street, every cop I meet simply hates me. Because I'm world weary. I could kiss those railroad tracks. I want to get right back to nature and relax. My last pianist, ladies and gentlemen. My last pianist was a gentleman called Mr. Peter Greenwell. I'm very happy to say that his talent, experience, skill, and consummate professionalism is replicated tonight in the form of Mr. Jerome Lloyd. Thank you. In later years, I became very worried about my long-time companion, Graham Payne, who seemed quite incapable of doing anything at all. It was true his career had been a disaster, but there were other ploys he could go after. He was universally loved, and everybody thought the world of him. But he was, to my mind, pathologically idle. A far cry from when I gave him the next song, Matalo, to sing in my review, Sigh No More. And he only got that because I strained my leg at rehearsal. But before I sing you that, I'm going to sing you a song from one of my last musicals, Ace of Clubs, which incidentally, in the cast included a very young Miss June Whitfield. This song always seemed out of place in Ace of Clubs, but I knew it was far too good to be allowed to die. So it later became a song in its own right and starred originally in the musical Miss Elaine Stritch. When the dark clouds are riding through a winter sky, sail away, sail away. When the love light is fading in your sweetheart's eye, sail away, sail away. When you feel your song is orchestrated wrong, why should you prolong your stay? Though the wind and the weather blow your dreams sky high, sail away, sail away, sail away. Jean-Louis Dominic Pierre de Bouchon, true to the breed that bore him, answered the call that held in thrall his father's heart before him. Jean-Louis Dominic sailed away, further than love could find him, but in the night he heard a light and tender voice behind him say, Matelot, Matelot, where you go my heart goes with you. Matelot, Matelot, when you go down to the sea. When there's grief in the sky and the waves fly bright high, my heart will to yours will roam. You remember the night through the winter's light that leads you safely home. Though you find womenkind to be frail, one love cannot fail, my son, till our days are done. Matelot, Matelot, where you go my heart goes with you. Matelot, Matelot, when you go down to the sea. Hey oh hey, hey oh hey, hey oh hey. In the same show, Sigh No More, I wrote a song, That Is the End of the News, for the show's soubrette, a certain Miss Joyce Grenfell, who felt that the sentiment was not strong and was too strong for her audience. When I asked her what audience that might be, she replied, oh, my radio audience. Well, she'll be here next month, in spirit at least, to answer that for herself. On the 30th of March, a special show on Mothering Sunday, celebrating the genius of Miss Joyce Grenfell.
Sunday, 4th of December 1955, Noel became a tax exile living in Switzerland and Jamaica.
Yes, indeed. I felt it was fairly ludicrous. For the sake of 8 weeks a year, I had to pay nearly £20,000 in income tax. This was just a just and legitimate method of defeating the monstrously unjust tax system in this country. It had nothing to do with my lack of patriotism that had been bandied around in the gutter press. But for that reason, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you with a speech I wrote for my 1931 production, Cavalcade. It is my toast to England. So I would ask you all to raise your glasses, those of you who are still capable. Now then, let us couple the future of England with the past of England. The glories and victories that are over, and the sorrows that are over too. Let us drink to our sons who made part of the pattern, and our hearts that died with them. Let us drink to the spirit of gallantry and courage that made a strange heaven out of unbelievable hell. And let us drink to the hope that this country of ours that we love so much will one day find greatness and dignity and peace again. Night is over, dawn is breaking, everywhere the town is waking, just as we are on our way to sleep. Lovers meet and dance a little, snatching from romance a little, souvenir of happiness to keep. The music of an hour ago was just a sort of let's pretend. The melodies that charm the soul at last are ended. The party's over now, the dawn is roaring very nigh. The candles scatter, the starlight leaves the sky. It's time for little boys and girls to hurry home to bed, for there's a new day waiting just ahead. Life is sweet, but time is sleep beneath the magic of the moon. Dancing time may seem sublime, but it is ended all too soon. The thrill has gone, to linger on would spoil it anyhow. Let's creep away from the day, for the party's over now. When I have fears, as Keats had fears, of the moment I'll cease to be, I console myself with passing years, remembered laughter, remembered tears, and the peace of the changing sea. When I feel sad, as Keats felt sad, that my life is so nearly done, it gives me comfort to dwell upon remembered friends who are dead and gone, and the jokes we had, and the fun. How happy they are, I cannot know, but happy I am, who loved them so. Life is sweet, but time is fleet beneath the magic of the moon. Dancing time may seem sublime, but it is ended all too soon. The thrill has gone, to linger on would spoil it anyhow. Let's creep away from the day, for the party's over now. I believe that since my life began, the most I've had is just the talent to amuse. Hey ho, if love